Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Practice Perfect podcast. It's another day, another week. We're here in the month of March. It's beautiful. Spring is going to be here, I think, this week, right, Maya?
Yes, and it's gonna be 70 degrees today, so it's a beautiful day. I just love seeing the flowers bloom and all of that good stuff. It's just a wonderful thing altogether.
Oh, yes. It's like everything is waking up and getting renewed. And I hope that means that we'll have the same experience with our lives, and we'll just be able to wake up every day and just feel better. Who knows? But I am excited because on Monday I get to fly out to Chicago and see yours truly. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's gonna be a great time. It's always a great time to connect and it's gonna be warmer, I believe, that week. So we'll be able to experience some good weather and deep dish pizza.
Yes, ma'am. So my husband loves Chicago, and it's actually where we had our honeymoon. So like he loves Chicago, and he can't come with me. So I was like, last night I said, I was like, I can't bring you to Chicago with me, but I'm going to bring Chicago to you. So I made those again. What do you call them? The beef steaks, the sandwiches. Is that what you call them?
Oh, Italian beefs.
Italian beefs. That's what it's called. Yes, I'm like butchering it, but no, so good. I was so excited I got to make that. It was really delicious, and I was like, wow, I'm
And
going to make this more often.
yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of them, because people have what is it, cravings for home, they send packages to people like with the hot dogs, the pizza. It's all frozen, obviously, but you could still,
Yeah.
enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like, is there any way for me to get to do that and get him something? I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll
Oh,
see what we
it's
can
nothing like the
do.
real thing, but you could you
I
could you could
know.
bring back some Garrett's. That'll make them feel better too.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. But I'm excited for today's episode. For those of you that are on today, listening live, and those of you listening on demand, I think you're really going to enjoy our topic. It's something that we all just need to talk about because the more I listen to practices and some of the challenges in reimbursement, I'm realizing that there are individuals out there that don't know how to fight for their money.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways you can fight for your money. So we're really excited to talk about contracts today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and not only that, but a lot of times there's a need for interpretation of what's in the contract, and having the need for a attorney to be involved with that process, and not having an attorney and thinking you could do it all on your own and understanding is just a really bad deal.
Exactly. So the practice I was working with, we were digging into their contracts and kind of looking at them, but they actually do have a healthcare attorney that is on their compliance team. So they do have that. So it was a nice mix of what I know about reimbursement versus what they know as far as the legal side and also reimbursement. So it was a nice mix. And so I think it's a really good way to marry this process is, yes, have somebody that you can trust on the legal side, working for your team. Get together with those that understand what you're dealing with from the claim side, from the denials and just overall processes, and see if you all can come together and use the language in your own contracts. And so I think, of course, to start off, let's define for our audience, some that might be listening that don't know what we're talking about. uh,
Yeah.
what is a payer contract? So, well, I mean, you have a contract with many individuals in your life, right? I know we have a marriage contract, right? We have contracts with various entities we go into when we sign papers, right? So it's no different when the insurance company says we're going to pay you. They're going to give you a contract, and we're going to pay you in network. They're going to let you into their little world, their network, and they're going to say, hey, we'll pay you X amount of dollars, but it comes with some ground rules. And that's what the contract lays out, or should lay out. uh, and I think where we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot is not understanding the fine print, what our responsibility is as a medical office or organization, and what their responsibility is. Are both parties following the rules?
Right. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's a partnership, right? Just like a marriage is a partnership. You agree to disagree, you agree to obey, right? So you agree to
Yes.
obey, and with those terms, if you don't sign a prenup, right? Because we're talking about marriage terms, you don't sign a prenup, then you're liable to fall under some traps that could damage your outcomes and your earnings and the dividends that you get in return for becoming a provider.
Right, exactly. So, and I think people just forget that this process, they always go back and forth. Oh, the insurance. Oh, the physician. Oh, the insurance. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's nobody's fault unless somebody is not following the rules. If you're not following the rules, then yes, it is your fault.
Yes.
And you can easily be doing everything right, and the insurance company is actually not following the rules. One of the things that I found with this one practice I was working with, and actually the director of revenue found it and was so excited she found it. She had a conversation with one of the reps, and it was just a claim rep, and they were advising her to do some shady things just from a claim standpoint. And I was shocked some of the things he or she was telling her to do. And she was just like, there has to be some violation that they're making in the contract to advise this. And there was a clause in there that identified, their ability to counteract what they were telling them to do, and they were in violation of the ethics of their contract. So again, there's so many things that you need to pay attention to. I was just, floored when they were advising her to do something that was not compliant.
Well,
And yeah.
no, I mean, I think this goes back to education, right? And the people on the claims team, and it's dual sided. The physician
Mhm.
needs to be educated on what the granularities of the contracts are, and the service reps need to be educated on what they're advising on, the do's and don'ts. And I think there's from coming from an insurance side, because I used to work for an insurance company. I mean, I know how all of these things work, and it's just really interesting the lack of education that is provided for the reps that are on the phone or even the claim reps. And I think it's a dual-sided sword that needs to be addressed, how your representative should be educating and the provider should be educated on how to read their contracts.
Exactly. And there's more than just the reimbursement terms in a contract. There is, how are they going to handle prior authorizations?
Hmm.
How are they
Hmm.
going to handle, if they decide to, um, take back your money for some reason? What are the rules around that? What are
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that's all. There's so many different clauses you can put in there. And so again, talk to a healthcare attorney when you get this contract. Maybe you're new to healthcare, you're new to operating a practice, and you don't know all these things, right? So it's really good to, get things in writing, obviously, go through the process, but in that negotiation period, don't sign anything
Hmm.
until
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
talk to your healthcare attorney, especially if you're new to this and you've never done it before. And then have them in your back pocket every time you have a contract renewal, and make sure you have somebody in your staff. I mean, we do this at our organization. We have somebody that tracks when our contracts are due. And so, like
Yeah.
60 days before we have to renew, we look at everything and see if there's anything
Right.
we need to change. Um,
Right.
so that's always a good idea with any contract, but don't rely on, just, oh, that's the way we've always done it. One of the biggest mistakes everyone makes in recent years is looking at the reimbursement rates that you're making. Now, I'm not a fan of the current rates insurance companies are offering. So at the end of the day, sometimes you're better off keeping your rate, but it's always a good idea to look at what they're paying you for your high dollar procedures.
Oh, Jen, don't get me started. I mean, I think there's a couple of things that we also need to examine is the compliance, right? What is in the compliance clause for the contract? One.
Mhm.
And then two, you talked about rate pay. And you gotta be, you have to be extremely careful when it comes to the rate of pay because there's a search. certain companies are contracted to create not the Medicare fee schedule, but their own fee schedule, and it's resource based. The American Hospital Association did an article on this and how um, the resource base could be lower than Medicare. But if they buy that type of contract or agree to that type of contract, you could get paid less than Medicare. So,
Hmm.
depending upon what type of facility you are, depending upon what type of practice you are, you can get some of it back on the cost report. But if you're not a facility and you're a physician practice, just depending on that money, you're going to get a lot of write-offs on the back end. But how are you going to maintain your office throughout the year? That's going to be the main thing.
Right, exactly. There was data out there. So MultiPlan is one of those what we call repricers, right?
Yep.
That is used for a specific some insurances. I know Cigna uses them for some of their plans, and so we have an organization we are helping to credential right now. I mean, first of all, you can't even like get the reps to get back to you to even like talk about your contract, and so it's a mess. And so, but at the end of the day, like you have to decide, do you want to go into a contract with this other entity who is a repricer? They're not the insurance company. They're
No.
basically in charge of repricing the fees. And
Yeah.
so you have to understand what kind of contract you're going into with them. Now, there was actually a case. It was last year. I'm pulling it up right now so I can read right from the words here, but it was having to do with MultiPlan and some of the things that they were doing. Their business drove $22.9 billion of underpayments to providers in 2023 alone.
Yep.
That was
Yep.
insane, the data on that. I
Yeah.
mean, like, that's what that does. And so you will see people out there constantly advising healthcare practices to stop engaging with these companies. Now, you may feel you have no choice because that's your patient base and that's what they have, and their plan states that that's who governs the plan. But again, you have options. You don't have to accept certain payers. You don't have
Right.
to accept their low rate. You can do your own thing because there are other things that work in your favor, like ERISA and the Affordable Care Act, some of the laws in place that really do work in your favor so you can actually control who you contract with.
hmm And sometimes the verbiage that's associated with the rate of pay, if let's just say, for example, you're not a provider, but that third party insurance company sends you a letter, oh, well, you did this surgery, you're not a network, but we'll offer you X amount of dollars for doing this procedure. That's still a contract. And if you authorize someone to accept it, you need to make sure you talk with the right people to make sure you're getting a return on the cost of doing that service in addition to. So it's not all about just contract negotiations when it comes to credentialing. It's about contract negotiations when it comes to the procedures themselves and
Mhm.
talking to the right people and making sure that whatever it is that they're negotiating with, you have it in writing, right? Because they're supposed to send you an offer, they're supposed to send you the rate of pay, they're supposed to tell you all of those different things in addition to. So, having people in place that understand the negotiated rates, that understand the rate of pay, and understand how this compares to your standardized contractual rates and comparing them to are a huge difference when it comes to revenue in the office.
Yes, and we always advise our clients to carving out these services because you may have. And I work in plastics and I work in high dollar procedures in spine, ortho spine, and there are some very high dollar procedures that on their own need to be reimbursed at an appropriate level. And so,
Yeah.
yes, you might think, oh, we'll just take the rates, right? But if you don't look carefully, they're averaging the rates across all your procedures. So what you want to do is take the top 20 codes is what most consultants will advise you. Take your top 20 codes the highest revenue, look at the ones, look how much you've been getting, right? And figure out if that's enough to cover the costs. You have budgets, you have people in your practice that do that. You have cost of staff, you have cost of lots of things in your practice. You have to make sure that those procedure reimbursements cover. So you can carve out certain procedures in your negotiations. You can, state your case, why you feel that you should get more because you live in a certain area. This is a very necessary procedure for the community. There's a lot of things you can use in your toolbox to negotiate rates for your organization in your region.
Yep. And not only that though, I mean, and not only is the 20% top 20 procedures, but as a provider, you can carve out certain procedures for it to be
Yes.
negotiated upon performance. So when this happens, you can carve it out and say, wait a minute, this cost me X amount of dollars, this did this, and I want to negotiate how much I want to get paid. And you could leave that clause open for that. So I think it's really important for those types of things to be brought out in the open as a reimbursement consultant, as a person who's in charge of the revenue for your office. So there are certain things that you must be mindful of, and that you have the control because you are the one who's providing the service. Remember, you're holding the dollar, you're holding the procedure. They're holding the dollar, you're doing the procedures. But if they need you, then you can negotiate it.
Right. There is a clause out there called the lesser of clause, and it's pretty
Mhm.
crazy. So the payers want to get to reimburse you, right? The lesser amount of either of the bill charge or the contracted rate. So that's a big one to pay attention to. That can really bite you in the butt if you're not careful. So if your bill charge is higher than the contracted rate, you're not going to get reimbursed the full amount. And so that's how that works. But those are clauses to watch out for as well. There is also another one called the stop loss that will
Yeah.
set a cap on the payer, what they can reimburse you. So if your
Yeah.
treatment exceeds that, so that's what Maya was talking about, making sure that is left open so that you can actually get what you need to get for that procedure that costs more than others.
Yeah. 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 I mean, when we come to contracts, and this is where, from a compliance perspective, you need to have them readily available. Like, have your hands on it to know what's going on with your contracts and to make sure that it's right. So if you are a anal when it comes to payments and making sure that your AR is on point, you're going to put your hand on a contract when you need it. You're going to have
Mhm.
access to those contracts to make sure that they're paying you appropriately. And you should be able to understand the language that's within that contract. Don't just say eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I think this is good, and then just leave it there. Then your practice is going to lose money if you don't understand the nature of your contract.
Exactly. And, you have to understand the implications of underpayments because they're happening so often. There is technology out there, and I've seen a couple of great tools that can now integrate into most EMR systems and payment or PM systems. I know Athena has some on their marketplace. Meditech does some of the major. I know actually, I think Epic actually has
Hmm.
some
They do.
resources there, which is really great. And so it can actually like dig into your claims and tell you which claims were underpaid based on your contract. But
Hmm.
guess what? You have to have your contract. And I think
Ooh.
that is the problem is that these insurance companies are holding them hostage.
Well, I
And
mean, not only that, go ahead. I mean, Jennifer, I'm telling you, I'm ready to jump on my soapbox and scream at the top of my lungs because one
woohoo,
of the things. Oh, don't get me started, girl. Look, don't open that door. Don't open that door. But
don't
I'll
put
just
that
say
Pandora's
this.
box.
I'll just say this. I've seen where insurance companies intentionally lower their per diem rates, and who gets who has to write it off, like their contractual amounts are higher than what they should. I'll tell you the scenario. I was working for a skilled nursing facility organization. They were one of the largest in the area, right? And what was happening was their per diem rate was significantly lowered. So what I had to do, because I'm anal and because I'm like that, I created a spreadsheet of what they paid and what they should have paid based upon the per diem rate. Do you know it averaged out close to $500,000
Oh,
of unpaid? I mean, and that's a lot of money. And think about that for the per diem rate. Think about how that translates to your dollars, to your practice. And this was a facility. Now, we're not talking about facility. Now we're talking about physician practice. Practice perfect, right? But make sure that it's perfect and that you understand all the granularities that are associated with your contract. Whew. Okay, I'm done. You're still on mute.
Sorry, guys. There's so much language in there that can trip you up, but again, there's so much in there that can be used to your advantage. So, and there's even just like, I wanted to say, I wrote a blog recently on my experience last year going to the Denials to Dollars seminar with Don Self and Carlene Dietrich. I went to St. Louis. I
Yes.
traveled to St. Louis. It was the closest one to me. So I traveled to see them. So worth the money. So if they come near you, I'm just, shout out to Don Self and his team and Carlene and Chris and all the great people that put this together. It's a great experience because you're going to learn things that are there for you to know. It just, you didn't know they were there. So in ERISA, the Affordable Care Act. So for
Yes.
instance, we know ERISA is mainly for our employer-based plans, right? And so that does help you with those plans, but they can't, after they have processed a claim and given you your money, they can't come back and take it after 30 days. Like that is a no-no, and that is an ERISA. So you have that on your, as in your pocket. But also there are some of those rules and regulations that are built into the Affordable Care Act that cover other payers. So I want to say, like, take your contract language, get to know ERISA, get to know the Affordable Care Act and what is on your side, marry those together, and really come and fight for your money. And then you want to track it, right? You want to track what happens. Make sure you're following through with it. Don Self, actually, I think it was yesterday, he posted a situation where one of his clients that he helps, they were actually able to use the language in ERISA to fight a take back, and they won. They stopped their efforts because they know that they can't do it. So they kind of bank on the fact you're not going to know this stuff a lot of times. And they will not.
But not only that, though. But not only that, though, you also have what's the word I'm looking for? Interest rates that are associated with delayed payments, and that's in your contract. In your contract, if they don't pay within a certain amount of days, they are required by law to pay interest based upon the receive date of the claim. So if they are 60 days late and the contract says that they are supposed to pay within 30 days, they owe you interest.
Yes.
But you have to make sure that you follow that, because those are additional dollars that you didn't intend on or counted on getting, but there's extra revenue, right? So those are returns. And if you don't know what you're due, that could be thousands of dollars that you don't even know that you should be due because they were paying late. Not because you didn't turn the records in on time. It's based upon the receive date of the claim, period.
Right. Exactly. There are so many things in there. Again, like we were talking about, we could talk, I think, all day about contracts. We have a whole conference, right, on contracts. I don't know, but it's just so much. And so I think that, you've identified what the contract states, and maybe you're at that point where you're going to negotiate. So I think one of the first things a lot of advisors will tell you is you can do what we call contract modeling, and you can kind of look at how the proposed changes would affect your revenue. So before you sign anything, just do a projection, and make sure you understand, if we implemented this new rate or if we implemented these new changes, how would it affect us revenue wise? And is it worth doing? Obviously. Compare what they're doing with other payers. Compare what this payer is doing with this payer. Make sure you understand that analysis you can do. It's really important. Now, you may be a specialty. Like I work in specialty, I work in surgery, and some don't even think to get the cost of like bandages and all these supplies built into their contract. There's so many things that you can get. I mean, Maya, what else do you want to add here? There's just so much to talk about.
When you think about contracts, there's I'm trying my best to okay. So let's think about one the contractual agreement between the insurance payer and the provider, right? Then it's based upon the need that's in your area for the specialties. Like Melanie is saying that this, it's a saturated area. And because it's a saturated area, there may be some differentials in the pay rates. Well, Melanie, what I would say to you to that is it's not about the saturation of the area, it's about um, what you're providing, the quality of care that's being provided, and the scores of those people around you, right? So if you have good scores and the saturation of them don't compare to you, then you're able to get higher money because of your what's the word I'm looking for? Your patient satisfaction rates, because that's published. And based upon all of that, you can get a better contract based upon that. So you should be really careful, and especially if you haven't had a raise in over 5 years. That's insane. So I mean, there's a way for you to go around that. Base your rate of pay on your UCR rates, right? But then you can also go to the insurance company and say, "Hey, I haven't had a rate in 5 years. We want X amount of dollars above Medicare." And they should go by that. And they say, "Well, why should we do that? Because we have a higher patient satisfaction rate. We have this, we have that." So it's about negotiating all of that and letting the insurance company know what's going on. So very, very
Exactly.
important.
Very, very good. Good stuff there. I really I just think that it's just so important to understand these things. Now, another benefit to looking at your revenue is you're going to see other things that you probably didn't know existed. So when you look at the contract modeling and you look at what you're getting paid and you're paying attention to it, you're probably going to see other things too that are going to benefit your organization. So it's always a good idea to take the time, maybe every quarter, every few months, just take a look at those things. Now, your payments, you want that to happen, regularly. You want to make sure that you're looking at your underpayments monthly, as ever often as you can, because you want to go after that money. Now, Maya, what do you recommend as far as how often should they be looking at underpayments? Because they only have so much time maybe to get their money. So what is the best rule of thumb there?
Mm. Well, it's a dual-sided, right? First, you have to look at the average amount of dollars that's on your AR, one. Then two, you have to look at how long it's taking for your claims to get paid and do a comparison, right? Do a comparison. So like Jennifer said, if you have a specialty and you know that your average 20 procedures is X amount of dollars, right? What needs to happen is that you need to look at those dollars, you need to look at the rate of pay and see how much you're writing off. If you're writing more than 50% off of what that rate of pay is, that's a problem. You need to negotiate and bring those rates up, because it's not necessarily an issue of the resources. It's about your return on being a provider. So I think, if you have somebody that is really in tune, and kind of OCD about how your payments are and what the rate of return is once you get a procedure, and you're not negotiating, then it's time to renegotiate your contract. 60 days out, you need to look at the rate of pay. You need to look at your AR, see how much you're writing out, and see how much that compares to the amount of money that constantly come into the office for your higher paying insurance company contracts. So you need to do some comparables. You need to compare, have your hands on a contract and be able to compare the rates and see how much they're paying. If they're 60%, if they're 80%, if they're 90%, that's great, but that's unlikely. But you need to make sure that you're able to do an active comparison and know what you need to make a change with when it comes to your provider reps and your attorneys who can act on your behalf.
Right, exactly. And at the end of the day, if they're being difficult and you're giving them all of this great stuff, like, hey, I offer extended hours, I'm doing all this for my community, and you're really valuable to their network and they don't appreciate that, walk away, because you don't have to. And you can say no. It's okay. Like, it's just like, you don't have to marry that person, guys. If it's not working out, it's the rest of your life, right? It's the rest of that year for you. That's your
Like the
revenue.
90
So
Day Fiance, right?
yes, exactly.
The
I love
90 Day
it.
Fiance, it's just a trial, yeah.
It's a trial period, guys. Yeah. So I love it. So no, that's just really important stuff. And like I said, Maya and I were not lawyers, but we work with lawyers. We know some people. And so we always advise to check with your healthcare attorney 100%. But we are there to help you understand some of the language that we have experience understanding. And so we can let you know, okay, like this might be an issue. You want to look at that. And then you want to, of course, contact your attorney to go over the fine print. But it's always a good idea to have that, in your kind of in your back pocket. So we love being available for healthcare practices to help them with that. So stay tuned for more information on what we can do to help you. But I wanted to actually share with you something very exciting. Now, Maya and I had a great experience with one of our clients, and we just recently put out a white paper on this organization, and we are very excited to share that with everybody. So if you go visit this site right here, hlthinspired.scoreapp.com, you're going to find our white paper, and we're very excited. You can also visit our website, healthcareinspiredllc.com, to download a free copy. It was so exciting to have this organization take them from a negative 7% to a positive 13% margin. How exciting to know that those numbers in just 6 months, guys. Now, they did a lot of work. We are not taking credit for everything, but it was an eye-opening experience for everyone, I think, involved, that what they could potentially have if they made a few small changes. And Maya, what kind of changes did you make? Were they really that hard to make?
Well, I mean, one of the things is that examining, you know, the audits, right? The
Mhm.
compliance audits and realizing that identifying the gaps. Like, because I'm OCD, I do a revenue analysis, and once I do the revenue analysis, I make the determination of if they're not billing, right? Or if they're billing low and what they're missing out on, like the what is it, the advanced care uh uh advanced what the ACP, the advanced care
Advanced care planning.
thingy. Thank you. The advanced care planning in the hospital because they had a whole bunch of infectious disease. They had nephrology. So these people are end stage renal diseases. So when they have those types of things on file, they can bill for them. And you're not limited to how many times you can bill for them. So,
Mhm.
when you think about those types of things and people who have like sepsis, all those types of things that are level threes or even critical care, even, and understanding how to bill that makes a difference in the revenue and how that analysis can change the outcome of how your providers bill. And once they saw that, based upon how we presented this information, their eyes were like, their jaws dropped and their eyes opened, like, I didn't know I could do this. So it's all about
Yeah.
education, experience, and knowing where the analysis and the revenue gaps lie.
Exactly. And you can do this yourself with, with maybe with a little help. We're here to help, and there's a lot of organizations that help practices just make small changes that make big returns. So we're very excited to see the growth in one of our organizations, and we're here to help any organization that needs the same change, because I think one of the biggest things, especially in primary care and some of these other multi-specialty groups, is that they're not billing for things that they already are doing. And there's so
Yeah,
much revenue left on the table just because, and you've done the work, you've documented it, and you're not billing for it because you don't know there's a code there that exists, and you don't know that you can get reimbursed, how much you can get reimbursed. And it's crazy how much is left on the table, especially in primary care, where you have so many areas
absolutely.
where they feel like, oh, we're just an E&M practice, we just bill E&Ms. But yeah, that might be true, but you have a lot of resources that you offer patients that you're not getting reimbursed for. And that's a lot of work. I
Right.
mean, to coordinate care like that they do. I mean, they're doing so
Hmm.
much to coordinate between specialties and all these kinds of services. They're the ones that are managing all these conditions. And so it's really important that they go after their money.
Well, not only that, but I mean, there's peripherals. The hot topic right now is telehealth, right?
Oh,
And
yes.
how telehealth just recently got expanded. I can't stand the spoon feeding. I'm
I
just
know,
I'm
right?
just gonna put it out there. I can't stand it. But one thing that
All or
providers
nothing
can
people.
really Man, man. Okay, don't get me started. Like that door don't okay. So,
Of
when we
course.
think about all of the girl, okay, when we think about the opportunities, right? Chronic care management, remote patient monitoring, right? Advanced practice care management. Those are peripherals that are outside of the office that providers normally do that you can capitalize on as a practice that are not restricted by telehealth guidelines. So, if you're hating getting spoon fed, then start thinking about the management that's peripheral of the office. You're still working in tandem with the practice, but you still are getting the best outcomes for the type of care that's needed for the patients when they're not in your face. Start thinking about those types of things that provide additional incomes. This is where the mind, right, comes into play, and working with consultants that can
Hello.
help you get this going. So it's all about that. We really glean on that, and I'm such a anal when it comes to those types of things. I'm like OCD when it comes to making sure that providers have the best outcomes when it comes to their revenue and making sure they're getting paid for what they're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone wants to get paid for what they're doing. I mean, I don't like to send an invoice and not get paid. I mean,
Uh,
it's rough.
hello,
It's rough,
hello.
right? I mean, I we understand how rough this is, but it's important. Now, we talked today about some of the things that you might not have known about payer contracts, but you might also not know some other things about payers. So, our next episode is going to talk about the top payer myths that are out there and what you can do to educate yourself on what the truth is, right? So, I'm excited for the next episode. We will see you at the next episode of the Practice Perfect podcast. We thank our listeners, our audience, and our lovely co-host Maya Turner for being here today. I am always happy to be here. So thank you guys for a great episode, and we will see you next time.